Is the Minister aware that some servicemen and servicewomen were given protective clothing and some were barred from it and were asked to roll in the dust of the ground at ground zero? It was a deliberate test. Does the Minister not accept that? The health was put at risk deliberately to find out the results.
In fact, a 1953 memo from the Defence Research Policy Committee spells out this deliberate policy of exposing men to radiation in order to monitor its effects.
The Army must discover the detailed effects of various types of explosions on equipment, stores and men, with and without various types of protection.
And they've admitted to spraying Norwich in England with vast quantities of cadmium spray from aerial spraying and from shipping at sea, and let the wind blow it in, and then they monitored the health of the people down through the years to see what happened to them. And I never told them, of course. They knew what was happening to them. And of course the doctors would know too that something really was going on, because it had the highest incidence of esophageal cancers and various lung cancers in the country, basically.
Well, they couldn't blame Al-Qaeda then, could they?
No, you see, I've always said you don't need to worry about an enemy anywhere else when your own government puts this on you.
In 1951, the Army sprayed the bacteria Serratia marcescens over San Francisco. 11 hospital patients developed a mysterious infection, and within days, Edward Nevin died from an illness caused by the same bacteria. Another cover-up concerned the death of a civilian, Harold Blower. Suffering from depression, he was a patient at the New York State Psychiatric Institute. There, he and 5 other patients were unwittingly tested with mind-altering drugs by doctors who'd signed a secret contract with the U.S. Army. In 1953, CIA employee Frank Olson leaped through his bedroom window on the 10th floor of this New York hotel. 9 days earlier, a fellow CIA scientist had secretly spiked his drink with LSD. February 1956. In the heart of New York, Operation Big City was underway. This Washington, D.C. bus station was the site of another secret test. 30 similar trials were conducted at public locations all across America.
Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. Some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted.
I've been interested in the last few years at the intersection of brain research, which is an exploding field, and military and national intelligence implications of this work. So who wants to guess how many, just to give you an idea of how big this field of neuroscience has become? Some of you know this, some of you. Anybody here studying cognitive neuroscience or anything related to neuroscience, or interested in brain research, or interested in the brain? Good, okay, a few of you. So how many people do you think attend the meetings every year of the Society for Neuroscience? Sounds like a pretty obscure organization, right? The answer is 35,000. 35,000 people go to the meetings of the Society for Neuroscience. This is a huge area. The neuroscience meetings are now among the largest meetings in medicine and science in the world. I think the cardiology meetings are still a little bigger, but neuroscience is big, and there's a lot of money in neuroscience. Why is there so much resistance, or almost cultural resistance, among scientists from talking about the ethics of brain research? Especially when you're talking about national intelligence or military applications. Well, one reason is that we live in a society that is absolutely shot through with conspiracy theory. And in particular, of course, as Americans, a very important part of our tradition, actually I think an admirable part of our tradition, is that we're skeptical about government. Those of us whose ancestors had the choice about coming here, some of us are first-generation Americans, I am, came here partly because, like my parents, they were trying to get away from government. They were trying to get away from a government that was involved in persecuting them or their families. So we have a very strong suspicion, and I think on the whole healthy suspicion of government in the U.S. In fact, I'll bet if you go home and talk to your families, there will be people in your families who are very skeptical about what happened on 9/11 and don't believe we're getting the full story. There's still a lot of disagreement with the Warren Commission and the JF Kennedy assassination. So we have a strong sense of this. And so I'm showing this. I don't know how many of you recognize this image. It's actually from the first Manchurian Candidate movie, not the really crappy one that came out 3 years ago or so. I recommend you see the original, which came out in 1963, right around the same time as the Kennedy assassination. So it was pretty much buried. But not a bad movie. This is, by the way, Frank Sinatra on the left. He's being brainwashed. Which I think is kind of fair, because he was brainwashing us, your parents' generation, for all those years. And this is, of course, Uncle Joe Stalin in the background. One historian has estimated that if you looked at places like Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Penn, the top research universities in the country, probably about a third of the scientists at those universities were supported by national security agencies. That includes what used to be called the War Department, now the Defense Department. Sounds better, doesn't it? Defense Department sounds better than the War Department. And the Central Intelligence Agency and the National Security Agency. This was a common element of the university. I'd like to say to my students, you know, imagine now the big research universities, including perhaps UC Santa Cruz, without any government money. Subtract all the buildings that would not be here if it hadn't been for government funding. That would give you an idea of the impact of the relation between the academic world and the United States government, starting with the Second World War. Basically, if any of you have ever gone to Boston, to Cambridge, MIT would not be there. It'd be a couple little buildings. Most of Harvard wouldn't be there. Much of Penn wouldn't be there. Much of Berkeley wouldn't be there. Right? And you know what came out of Berkeley, of course, was the early physics that led to the atomic bomb. So this was a very close relationship that has evolved over the years, and now it's virtually inseparable. What government funding and the academy is joined at the hip.
More than a quarter of senators and congressmen have invested at least $196 million of their own money in companies doing business with the Pentagon profiting from war in Iraq. According to reports, 151 members of Congress invested a total of $250 million in companies that received defense contracts of at least $5 million in 2006. According to fedspending.org, these companies received more than $275 billion from the government in 2006. Congressmen have given themselves a loophole, so they only have to report their assets in broad ranges. Investments in these contracts yielded Congress members between $15 and $62 million from 2004 to 2006 through dividends, capital gains, royalties, and interests. Many of the members of the Senate Foreign Relations and Armed Services Committees had between $32 million and $44 million invested in companies with the Department of Defense contracts.
Why is Bayer Corporation the rat of the week? Internal documents show that after this company positively, absolutely knew that they had a medication that was infected with the AIDS virus, they took the product off the market in the U.S. and then they dumped it in France, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. The medicine's called Fakery. It was an injection medicine that was used for hemophiliacs, mostly children. Children had been born with an incurable disease. Hold on, Mike. So, hold on. So you're telling me that Bayer knew that this drug was infected with the AIDS virus. They yanked it from the market in America, and then they dumped it in markets overseas? They had to figure out a way, Joe, to make a profit on a product that they could not sell in America.
We found dozens of baby shampoos, bubble baths, and other children's body care products to be contaminated with formaldehyde and 1,4-dioxane. Neither of those chemicals was listed on the labels of any of the products. We were surprised to find that so many popular baby products contain both formaldehyde and 1,4-dioxane. I think parents will really be surprised to look at the products we tested and to find out that these products that are advertised as pure and gentle actually contain hidden carcinogens that aren't listed on the labels.
Well, are you sitting down? Baxter International, an Illinois-based pharmaceutical company, was caught shipping live avian flu viruses mixed with vaccines to 18 countries last week. Of course, health officials are asking how this could be, as it can't happen by accident. Why? Because Baxter International adheres to Biosafety Level 3. That's a set of safety protocols that prevent the cross-contamination of materials, which means it was done purposely.
So what was Baxter doing mixing live avian flu viruses, both H5N1 and H3N2, which is the human form, with standard flu vaccine material? And who authorized it? The tainted vaccines were received by labs in a number of Eastern European countries, and some are wondering whether the contamination was part of a deliberate attempt to start a pandemic. The avian flu virus on its own has killed hundreds of people, but when combined with ordinary flu viruses, which are easily spread, the effect is a potent, super airborne, super deadly biological weapon with a 60% plus kill rate.
And check this out. On the same day the story broke, officials at the National Emergency Management Summit released a statement saying it was no longer an if issue, but when there would be an avian flu pandemic. One can only wonder if they knew what was going on at Baxter. And in a chilling hint of what's planned to deal with a pandemic, whether it's natural or man-made, health officials say it's important for all citizens to be prepared for the possibility of being quarantined for months at a time.
Buried on page 232 of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 are the words Smart Grid. And if you haven't a clue what it is, pay close attention here. Smart Grid is connected to the National Animal Identification System, which you've heard us talk about us on this show. And both programs are designed specifically to spy on American citizens.
Even more disturbing than these government intrusions into our lives is the fact that the Obama administration feels that Smart Grid is so important that it had to be funded in the stimulus package, which is supposed to be used for emergencies only. So what is going on? And what's the big emergency efficiency. Why does smart grid need to be implemented within 60 days of the bill passing?
Smart grid is part of a global initiative to manage information, all information. This is not some dire fictional prediction. It exists right now, right here in the United States. To the untrained eye, the smart grid is about energy efficiency. However, this intelligent power grid gathers information about people via sensors in transmission lines in homes and businesses.
Smart grid will allow the government to collect information about you, about your habits, possessions. All they need are a few remote sensors to know what's in your refrigerator, how long you spend in the bathroom, for goodness sakes, if you smoke, if you drink alcohol, and how many people are in your home or business at any one given time. Science fiction? Think again.
And the companies behind it? Why, none other than GE and IBM. As a matter of fact, their very existence is now dependent on gathering and assembling this information on us worker bees for Big Brother. Remember, President Obama believes implementing smart grid is urgent. He wants the program to expand quickly with all of us on the grid by 2012. That is all of us.
Because of Obama. 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 I aspire to be the next chemical engineer.